We had just finished the figure 4 instructions, and we were moving on to armhole figure 5, and it gives you like amazing instructions. Draw armhole curve with rule touching G, M, and square line. Do not follow curve past square line. Awesome. So, and then I guess you're supposed to refer to the picture, but you don't always know if the picture is accurate or not, right? Because we already noticed that it says 1 1/4, and when we were doing the skirt it said 1 1/2, and it was really supposed to be 1 1/4. So their picture is pretty trustworthy. So what you want to do is you want to stick your French curve, I'll turn it for the camera too. You want to stick your French curve in the space so that the straighter part of the curve is touching G, where the G intersects with the C line, and you want it to be resting on the O line, but you don't want it right on the point where O and E intersect. You want it back a little bit, so you want some flatness there. And then you want it to touch M, but you don't want it to cross over M, so it has to be outside of M. So let me turn that for the camera and align it. But now I can't see very well because of the angle for me. So I'm going to extend my M line to make sure that I'm not going inside of it, because it looks like I am. So I'm just going to extend that line. I'm just going to make sure it's square. There we go. So again, it's just shifting the curve and looking at your points, because when you move it to accommodate one, it messes up the other. So you just keep shifting it. So what I have here is it's not touching there, right? It doesn't touch the O line until about here. So that is where my curve begins, and that's good. I want some flat space there right at the underarm. It's touching M, but it's not crossing inside the pattern on M, and it's touching G. And I felt my arm move, so let me just make sure that I'm in there again. And then once you've got it nestled in those spots, then you can go ahead and trace it. And then sometimes you need to come in and just blend it, because it shouldn't be like, so sometimes I'll come in and just kind of flip my curve and just make sure that it's not like a real wonky line, but it's very smooth. So it's not crossing inside to M, it's touching G, and it's touching the O line, but there's a flat space there at the underarm. And then the other thing it tells you to do is the neck. What are our instructions for the neck? Draw curve from I to D, passing inside the angle line by 1/8. So inside means inside. This would be outside, right, in the margins. So what I usually do is I take my ruler and I draw a line parallel, right, this is the one they're talking about, yeah. I draw a line parallel to this I line that intersects with D. I just draw a line 1/8 of an inch parallel, and it's kind of in the middle that you want that depth to happen. And then their picture is pretty good. The curly part goes facing down, and it's nestled against D. And then the straight part is up towards the shoulder. Theirs shows that it touches I. Let's see if that's true. Yeah. So there'll be some flatness at center front neck at D, so you're not going to start drawing right where D and the center front intersect. You're going to back off like 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch, and then your curve will begin. And you'll come up to the line that's 1/8 of an inch away from where I intersects with D, and you still want some squareness up here by I. So they have it touching, but I'll go ahead and do that, but then I'll come back in and make sure that that angle is still square when I'm done. Because when I sew the back to the front, right there where it goes over the shoulder, I want it to be straight. I don't want it to poke in towards the neck or V out towards the shoulder. This will make sense when you go to sew it. So I just want to make sure that right here, this is still square, just at least for like an 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch. So it looks like I have about 3/16 of flatness. So that'll work for me. Where's my line? Yeah. So we want square and square and square. And this is probably at a little bit of an angle. Let's check it. Square would be nice, but I don't think it's possible right here. Oh yeah, it is. So we can square that too. Just make sure I'm not adding. So we can square right there too. Just for a little bit, like 1/4 of an inch. And that way when you sew them together, it makes a nice smooth curve. So I think that does it for the front bodice. So next we'll start on the back bodice. Oh, we should write front on it somewhere, write your name. And I also, this point of the dart, that was, oh now I remember what I need to tell you. This point of the dart was backed off, the vanishing point was backed off from K1 5/8 of an inch. That's our vanishing point, which we will punch for the block, but not for styles, but for this sloper, this block we will. The punch hole that you use on garments backs off from there another 1/2 inch. So because it's a sloper, we'll have 2 punch holes, but normally you just have this one that's backed off a 1/2 inch. The thing I was gonna show you that I ended with last time was drawing the seam shaping for the dart. So I had, when last we spoke, we had this folded and we drew the curve. And then I ran over it with my tracing wheel and I made perforated marks here. And I want to true those so I can see them. So when I drew the waist, I had my curve like this, right? So when I go to draw the seam shaping on this side, I need to flip my curve over, right? So if this side was like this, then the back side of it should be like that. So on that side, it's very slight, but still. So I'm just gonna find F on the dart leg and then the point that I traced with my little tracing wheel, and then shift my curve until it looks like it's touching all those little perforated dots that I made. There we go. And then trace that shape. And then it should be about the same. So 13, 12 and 5/8. So I can flip this over and put that at 12 and 5/8. And that should hit where my dart leg intersects with the Q line, and then trace that shape. Now we're pretty much done with the draft. Later we'll talk about notches, like when we do the armhole and stuff like that, but we're gonna do the, let me see, do they talk about it yet? No. So the next thing they talk about is the bodice, the back bodice draft. So let's go ahead and